The morning sun reflected off the glass doors of the Westlake Hotel as Andre Taylor adjusted his tie and took a deep breath. At 24, he was younger than most people attending the business conference, but his startup had been gaining attention, and this was his chance to network with potential investors. He checked his watch. Right on time for check-in. The Westlake wasn't just any hotel. Its marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and reputation for excellence made it the go-to place for high-profile events. Andre had saved for months to afford the stay, knowing the connections he could make here might change everything for his tech company. "Good morning," he said with a warm smile as he approached the front desk. "I have a reservation for the next 3 nights. Andre Taylor." The hotel manager, a woman with graying blonde hair and pearl earrings, looked up from her computer. Her name tag read Patricia Miller. Her eyes narrowed slightly as they moved from Andre's face to his simple but professional navy suit. "Good morning," she replied, her tone noticeably cooler than the greeting she'd given to the older white couple she'd just helped. "Do you have your confirmation number?" Andre nodded and pulled out his phone, showing her the email. "Right here. I'm attending the Tech Innovators Conference that starts tomorrow." Patricia glanced at his phone screen but didn't take it to look more closely. "One moment," she said, typing something into her computer. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm not seeing any reservation under that name." Andre's heart sank a little, but he remained calm. "That's strange. I received a confirmation email last month and my card was charged the deposit." He scrolled through his email to double-check the dates. "Yes, starting today, September 9th, for 3 nights. Perhaps you've confused us with another hotel," Patricia suggested, not bothering to look at his confirmation again. "The East Side Inn is often confused with us, and they have much more affordable rates." Behind Andre, the hotel doors swung open, and a middle-aged white man in an expensive suit walked in, rolling a designer suitcase. Patricia's eyes lit up. "Mr. Whitman, how wonderful to see you again," she called out, completely shifting her attention from Andre. "I'll be with you in just a moment." The man nodded and stood a few feet away, checking his phone. Andre cleared his throat. "My reservation is definitely for this hotel. Could you please check again? The confirmation number is right here." Turned his phone screen toward her once more. Patricia sighed as if Andre was being difficult. "Look, we're quite full with the conference. Even if you did have a reservation, which I'm not seeing, we might not be able to accommodate you." She lowered her voice. "The rooms here start at $400 per night. Are you sure this is where you intended to stay?" The implication was clear, and Andre felt heat rising to his face. He'd dealt with this kind of prejudice before, people assuming he couldn't afford things, didn't belong in certain spaces, but he'd worked too hard to be dismissed so easily. "I'm certain," he said firmly. "I paid the deposit of $1,200 last month. It's already been charged to my card." He pulled up his banking app. "Here's the transaction." Patricia barely glanced at it. Anyone can show a banking app with numbers on it. Without a confirmation in our system, there's nothing I can do. Meanwhile, Mr. Whitman stepped forward. "Actually, I don't have a reservation. I was hoping you might have a room available for tonight." Patricia's entire demeanor transformed. "For you, Mr. Whitman, we'll certainly find something suitable. Just give me one moment." Her fingers flew across the keyboard and she smiled. "We have a lovely executive suite available. Would that work for you?" "Perfect," the man replied. Andre stood there, feeling increasingly invisible. Another couple entered the hotel and lined up behind him. He stepped slightly to the side so Patricia could see there were other guests waiting, but she was busy taking Mr. Whitman's credit card and providing him with all sorts of information about the hotel's amenities. After finishing with Mr. Whitman, Patricia turned to the couple behind Andre, completely ignoring him. "How may I help you today?" "Excuse me," Andre said, his voice calm but firm. "We weren't finished with my situation." The couple looked uncomfortable. "You can help him first," the woman offered. "We're not in a rush." Patricia's smile tightened. "He doesn't actually have a reservation with us. I was just explaining that to him." Andre pulled out his laptop from his messenger bag. I have the confirmation email with the hotel letterhead and confirmation number. I'd like to show you on a larger screen since you seem to be having trouble seeing it on my phone. A few other guests in the lobby had started to notice the exchange. An older black woman sitting in the lounge area looked up from her newspaper, watching the scene with growing interest. Patricia glanced around, seeming to realize she was creating a scene. Fine. Show me the email. Andre opened his laptop and pulled up the confirmation. The Westlake Hotel logo was clearly visible at the top, along with all his reservation details. He turned the screen toward Patricia. As you can see, everything is in order. I booked this 3 months ago specifically to attend the conference. Patricia reluctantly looked at the screen. There must be some system error then, she said, though her tone suggested she didn't believe there was any error at all. Let me check something else. She typed Andre's name again, this time with exaggerated slowness as if to show she was being thorough. After a moment, she frowned. Oh, there it is. It was under a different spelling. She didn't specify what spelling she'd found it under, but Andre doubted his 5-letter last name could be misspelled that badly by accident. So you do have my reservation? He asked. Yes, but... Patricia hesitated, clicking through screens. The room you reserved isn't available anymore. We had some maintenance issues. Andre checked the time on his watch. He'd already been standing here for 20 minutes and the conversation was going in circles. What room is available then? Well, we're quite full with the conference. She trailed off, then said, We might have a standard room near the elevators. It's quite noisy, and the view is of the parking garage. Not what you reserved, of course. Andre knew what she was doing, trying to make him walk away on his own. The room she was describing sounded deliberately unappealing. Is that the only option? He asked. Patricia smiled thinly. For now, yes, unless you'd prefer to try another hotel. The conference has filled us almost to capacity. Andre noticed that she'd just given an executive suite to Mr. Whitman, who hadn't even had a reservation. He also noticed that the couple still waiting behind him were shifting uncomfortably, clearly aware of what was happening. I'll take whatever. Room is available, Andre said, determined not to let her win. I need to be here for the conference. Patricia's smile faded. I'll need to see ID and a credit card, and there will be a $500 incidental hold placed on your card. Hotel policy. She emphasized the last part as if expecting him to back out. Andre had done his research. He knew the standard incidental hold was $200, but he took out his wallet and handed over his ID and credit card without comment. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing him react. As Patricia processed his information with deliberate slowness, Andre noticed more people watching from the lobby. The older black woman had set her newspaper down entirely and was now, on her phone, speaking quietly but intently. Your card has been declined, Patricia announced, loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Andre's face burned with embarrassment, but he knew that couldn't be right. That's impossible. I just used it yesterday, and there's more than enough available credit. Perhaps you've reached your limit with your previous expenses, Patricia suggested. Do you have another card you could try? Just then, the hotel doors swung open again. A striking woman in her 50s entered, dressed in an impeccable business suit, her natural gray-streaked hair styled in elegant twists. She surveyed the lobby with the confidence of someone who belonged wherever she chose to be. Andre's face broke into a relieved smile, the first genuine one since he'd entered the hotel. The woman's eyes met his, and she raised an eyebrow, instantly, assessing the situation. Patricia was still holding Andre's declined card, not noticing the new arrival. As I was saying, without a valid form of payment, I believe, came a clear, authoritative voice from behind her. You'll find that card works perfectly fine. Patricia turned, and her expression changed as she took in the woman now approaching. The front desk. Andre stood a little straighter. This humiliating check-in process was about to take an unexpected turn. Patricia's face went through a remarkable transformation as she took in the well-dressed woman now standing beside Andre. Her previously dismissive expression melted into uncertainty. I'm sorry, and you are? Patricia asked, her voice suddenly much more polite than it had been moments before. I am Vanessa Taylor, the woman replied, her voice smooth and controlled. And this young man is my son. She placed a hand gently on Andre's shoulder. Is there a problem with his reservation? Andre couldn't help but notice how Patricia straightened her posture, as if physically pulling herself together. Mrs. Taylor, there seems to be some confusion with the system. I was just explaining to your son that it's Dr. Taylor, actually. Vanessa corrected her calmly. And I couldn't help but overhear part of your conversation from across the lobby. You mentioned his card was declined? Patricia nodded quickly. Yes, unfortunately the card didn't go through. Hotel policy requires, run it again, Vanessa said. It wasn't a request. Patricia hesitated. Sometimes when a card is declined, running it multiple times can... The card works perfectly fine, Vanessa interrupted. My son used it yesterday, as he told you. Run it again, please. Something in Vanessa's tone made Patricia comply immediately. She swiped the card again, her eyes fixed on the computer screen. A moment later, her shoulders tensed. Oh, Patricia said quietly. It went through this time. The system must have had a glitch. Andre exchanged a knowing look with his mother. There had been no glitch. And what about his room? Vanessa asked. I believe he made a reservation for a business king with a city view. That's what the confirmation email shows. Patricia tapped nervously at her keyboard. As I was explaining, that particular room is unavailable due to maintenance issues. We only have a standard room by the elevators available. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. That's odd. When did these maintenance issues arise? I'm not certain of the exact timing, Patricia stammered. Because my son made this reservation 3 months ago and received confirmation. And just now I couldn't help but notice you found a suite for that gentleman. Vanessa nodded toward Mr. Whitman, who was now heading toward the elevators, who walked in without any reservation at all. The couple still waiting in line shifted uncomfortably. The woman whispered something to her partner, who nodded in agreement. Patricia's face flushed. Mr. Whitman is a regular guest. We know his preferences and my son is a paying guest with a confirmed reservation. Vanessa cut in. I'd like to speak with the general manager, please. Patricia's eyes widened. Mr. Reynolds isn't available at the moment. Perhaps I can help resolve. Please call him, Vanessa said firmly. I'm sure he'll want to know about this situation. The lobby had grown quieter as more people noticed the confrontation. Andre stood tall beside his mother, his expression calm but determined. He'd learned from her how to handle these situations with dignity. Patricia looked trapped. I'll see if he's available, she finally said, picking up the phone. While Patricia spoke quietly into the receiver, Vanessa turned to Andre. How long have you been standing here? She asked, keeping her voice low. About 30 minutes now, Andre replied. She first claimed my reservation didn't exist, then said my room wasn't available, then said my card was declined. I'm glad you showed up when you did. Vanessa squeezed his arm gently. I was meeting a client in the restaurant and saw you from across the lobby. I could tell something wasn't right from your body language. Patricia hung up the phone. Mr. Reynolds will be down shortly, she announced, not quite meeting either of their eyes. Thank you, Vanessa said. She turned to the waiting couple. I apologize for the delay in your check-in. The woman shook her head. No need to apologize. We're not in a hurry. Her tone made it clear she understood what was happening and supported them. A few minutes later, a tall man in a tailored suit emerged from a door marked Management. He approached with a professional smile. Good afternoon. I'm Thomas Reynolds, the general manager. How can I help you today? Before Patricia could speak, Vanessa stepped forward. Dr. Vanessa Taylor, she introduced herself, extending her hand. And this is my son, Andre Taylor. He has a confirmed reservation for the conference starting tomorrow, but he's been experiencing some difficulties with the check-in process. Mr. Reynolds shook her hand. I'm very sorry to hear that. What seems to be the issue? Andre spoke up. I arrived with a confirmed reservation for a business king room with a city view. The manager first told me my Reservation didn't exist. Then claimed the room wasn't available due to maintenance, then said my card was declined. I've been standing here for over half an hour while other guests were checked in immediately. Reynolds frowned and turned to Patricia. Can you pull up Mr. Taylor's reservation, please? Patricia nodded stiffly and typed on her keyboard. It's here. There was a spelling issue initially, which is why I couldn't find it. And the room status? Reynolds asked. Patricia hesitated. The system shows the Business King rooms are all assigned. Assigned or occupied? Reynolds asked pointedly. Assigned, Patricia admitted reluctantly. But Mr. Whitman, who just arrived without a reservation, was given a suite while my son, who booked 3 months ago, was told nothing suitable was available, Vanessa stated. And then his card was mysteriously declined only to work perfectly fine when I asked you to run it again. Reynolds's expression darkened. Patricia, could I see you in my office for a moment? He turned to Andre and Vanessa. Please accept my sincere apologies for this inconvenience. If you'll give me just a few minutes, I'll personally make sure everything is sorted out to your satisfaction. As Reynolds and Patricia disappeared into the office, Andre let out a long breath. Thanks, Mom. I was trying to handle it on my own, but sometimes the system is designed to make you fail, Vanessa finished for him. You were handling it perfectly, with dignity and persistence. I'm proud of you for that. But some battles shouldn't have to be fought alone. The couple who had been waiting stepped forward. Excuse me, the man said. We couldn't help overhearing. What happened to you was completely unacceptable. His partner nodded in agreement. We're attending the conference too. I'm David Chen and this is my wife Laura. Maybe we'll see you there. Andre smiled, grateful for the show of support. Thanks. I'm Andre Taylor. I'll be presenting my startup tech bridge on the second day. We'll make sure to come to your presentation, Laura promised. The doors to the management office opened and Mr. Reynolds emerged alone. He approached Andre with a serious expression. Mr. Taylor, Dr. Taylor, I want to personally apologize for your experience today. This is not how we treat our guests at the Westlake, and I'm deeply troubled by what has occurred. He handed Andre a key card. You've been upgraded to one of our executive suites for the duration of your stay, at no additional charge. Your luggage will be taken up immediately. Andre accepted the key card with a nod. Thank you. Additionally, Reynolds continued, all charges for your stay have been waived. It's the least we can do to make amends for this situation. Vanessa's expression remained serious. While we appreciate the gesture, Mr. Reynolds, this isn't about a free room. This is about dignity and respect. My son shouldn't have to have his mother show up for him to be treated fairly. Reynolds nodded gravely. You're absolutely right, Dr. Taylor. I assure you that this incident will be thoroughly addressed. Patricia won't be returning to the front desk today, and we'll be having a staff meeting this evening to discuss our values and expectations. I hope so, Vanessa said, because what happened here today wasn't just poor customer service. It was discrimination, plain and simple. A few onlookers in the lobby nodded in agreement. The incident had attracted attention, and now people were watching to see how the hotel would respond. Reynolds lowered his voice. Dr. Taylor, if you have a moment, I'd appreciate speaking with you privately after your son is settled. There are some aspects of this situation I'd like to discuss further. Vanessa checked her watch. I can spare 15 minutes. Andre, why don't you go up and get settled? I'll meet you for dinner at 7. Andre hesitated, looking between his mother and the manager. Are you sure? Vanessa smiled reassuringly. Positive. Go prepare for your big day tomorrow. I've got this. As Andre walked toward the elevators, accompanied by a suddenly very attentive bellhop, he couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Relief that the situation was resolved, pride in his mother's composure and strength, but also a familiar weariness. How many times would he have to face situations like this in his life? And what about the people who didn't have a Dr. Vanessa Taylor to step in for them? He entered the elevator, nodding to the other passengers. As the doors closed, he caught a glimpse of his mother following Mr. Reynolds toward his office, her head held high, her posture resolute. Whatever came next, Andre knew one thing for certain. Patricia's day was about to get a whole lot worse. Vanessa followed Mr. Reynolds into his office, taking in the tasteful decor and the wall of framed awards. Behind his desk, the door closed with a soft click, and Reynolds gestured to a comfortable chair across from his desk. "Please, have a seat, Dr. Taylor," he said, his expression troubled. "I want to speak with you candidly about what happened today." Vanessa sat down, her posture perfect, her expression giving nothing away. Years as both an attorney and a mother had taught her the power of a calm exterior, even when anger simmered beneath. "I appreciate that, Mr. Reynolds," she replied, placing her designer handbag beside her chair. "Candid conversations are often the most productive ones." Reynolds settled into his chair with a heavy sigh. "First, let me say again how deeply sorry I am for the way your son was treated. There is absolutely no excuse for it." "I agree," Vanessa said simply. "There isn't." Reynolds nodded, clearly uncomfortable but pressing on. "What you may not know is that this isn't the first incident involving Patricia Miller. We've had a few complaints over the past year that suggested a pattern of behavior." Vanessa raised an eyebrow, and yet she remained in a front-facing position, directly interacting with guests. Reynolds had the good grace to look embarrassed. "The complaints were never quite specific enough to warrant termination under our current policies. They were filed as customer service issues rather than discrimination complaints, without concrete evidence. You needed someone to name what was happening," Vanessa finished for him, "to use the word discrimination explicitly." "Unfortunately, yes," Reynolds admitted. "Corporate policies can be restrictive in terms of how we handle these situations." Vanessa reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "Mr. Reynolds, do you have security cameras in the lobby?" He looked surprised by the question. "Yes, of course. For safety and security purposes. And do those cameras record audio as well as video?" "They do," Reynolds confirmed. "Is there a reason you're asking about our security system?" Vanessa placed her phone on the desk between them. "Because I think you should compare your security footage with this." She tapped her screen and the unmistakable sound of Patricia's voice filled the office. "Perhaps you've confused us with another hotel," Patricia's recorded voice said condescendingly. "The East Side Inn is often confused with us, and they have much more affordable rates." Reynolds's eyes widened as the recording continued, capturing Patricia's suggestive comments about Andre not being able to afford the hotel and her blatant preferential treatment of Mr. Whitman. "You recorded this?" Reynolds asked, his face paling slightly. "I did," Vanessa confirmed, stopping the playback. "I was sitting in the lobby waiting for a client when I noticed my son at the front desk. I could see from his body language that something was wrong, so I moved closer. When I heard what was happening, I started recording. And I'm very glad I did." Reynolds ran a hand over his face. "This is unambiguous." "Yes, it is," Vanessa agreed. "And it's also just the visible part of a much larger problem. For every Andre who has his mother witness the discrimination, how many guests suffer this treatment with no one to advocate for them?" Reynolds nodded slowly. "You're right. And I want you to know that Patricia will face serious consequences for this behavior." "I would expect nothing less," Vanessa said firmly. "But I'm more interested in systemic change than individual punishment. What will you do to ensure this doesn't happen to anyone else?" Reynolds seemed to hesitate, as if measuring how much to reveal. "Dr. Taylor, can I ask what you do for a living?" "I'm an attorney," Vanessa replied. "I specialize in corporate law and civil rights cases." Reynolds nodded as if confirming something. "I thought your name sounded familiar. You've been involved in several high-profile discrimination lawsuits over the years." "I have," Vanessa acknowledged. "But I'm here today as a mother, not an attorney, though I'm certainly capable of being both if necessary." Reynolds reached for a folder on his desk. "There's something you should know, Dr. Taylor. The Westlake isn't just any hotel in our chain. It's our flagship property, and we've been planning a major expansion." The board has been particularly focused on improving our diversity and inclusion initiatives across all properties. He opened the folder and slid a document across the desk. In fact, they've been looking to appoint someone to head up those initiatives, someone with experience in both corporate environments and civil rights. Your name is actually on the short list of candidates they're considering approaching. Vanessa looked down at the document, momentarily stunned to see her own name among a handful of others on an official company letterhead. This was not at all what she had expected when she walked into this office. "I wasn't aware of this," she said carefully, studying the document. "Few people are," Reynolds replied. "The search has been confidential. The board wants someone who can truly transform our company culture, not just apply a public relations bandage. The position would oversee all diversity and inclusion efforts, with the authority to implement real change across all our properties." Vanessa looked up from the document, her mind racing. "And you're sharing this with me now because what happened today with your son is exactly why we need someone like you," Reynolds said earnestly. "And because I want you to know that the company's leadership, at least at the highest levels, is serious about addressing these issues." Vanessa sat back in her chair, taking a moment to process this unexpected turn of events. "Mr. Reynolds, while I appreciate you sharing this information, it doesn't change what happened to my son today. Nor does it excuse the fact that Patricia Miller has apparently been allowed to discriminate against guests for some time without consequences." "You're absolutely right," Reynolds agreed quickly. "And I'm not trying to distract from that. Patricia's behavior is inexcusable, and she will be terminated. I can assure you of that." "Good," Vanessa said firmly. "But terminating one employee doesn't solve the underlying problem. You need better training, clearer policies, and actual consequences for discriminatory behavior, not just when someone's mother happens to be an attorney who catches it on tape." Reynolds nodded. "That's exactly the kind of perspective we need. Would you consider discussing the position with the board? Your experience today, as unfortunate as it was, gives you unique insight that could be invaluable." Vanessa thought about it for a moment. This wasn't at all how she had planned her afternoon to go, but perhaps there was an opportunity here, not just for her, but for real change. "I would be willing to have that conversation," she said finally. "But I want to be clear about something. If I ever took such a position, I wouldn't be a figurehead or a public relations tool. I would expect the authority to make real, substantial changes." "That's precisely what the board is looking for," Reynolds assured her. "Someone who won't just talk about diversity and inclusion, but will actually transform how we operate." Vanessa glanced at her watch. "I should get back to my son. He's been through enough today and we have dinner plans." Reynolds stood up. "Of course. Thank you for your time, Dr. Taylor. And again, my deepest apologies for what happened. I'll make sure Patricia is dealt with immediately." As Vanessa gathered her things, a thought occurred to her. "Mr. Reynolds, I'd like to see how you handle this situation. Not just with Patricia, but with your staff more broadly. Consider it my first assessment of whether your company is truly committed to change or just damage control." Reynolds looked slightly nervous but nodded. "That's fair. What did you have in mind?" "I'll be here for the next 3 days while my son attends the conference," Vanessa explained. "I want to see immediate action regarding Patricia, of course, but I also want to see how you communicate with your staff about what happened and what steps you take to prevent similar incidents in the future." "I understand," Reynolds said, "and I welcome your observations. In fact, I was planning to call an all-staff meeting this evening to address this directly." "Good," Vanessa said, heading toward the door. "I'll be interested to hear how that goes." As she walked through the lobby toward the elevators, Vanessa couldn't help but smile slightly at how differently the staff now treated her. The same bellhop who had ignored Andre earlier now practically tripped over himself to push the elevator button for her. In her room, Vanessa found Andre unpacking his conference materials, preparing for the next day's presentations. "How did it go?" he asked, looking up as she entered. Vanessa sat down on the edge of the bed. "Interestingly," she replied, "it seems Patricia has a history of similar behavior that the hotel has been overlooking. But that's about to change. Andre nodded, not looking particularly surprised. Good. But you know this happens all the time, right? And most people don't. Have a lawyer mom to step in and fix things. I know, Vanessa said softly. But that might be changing too. The hotel's parent company is apparently looking for someone to lead their diversity and inclusion initiatives, and my name was already on their list of candidates. Andre's eyes widened. Seriously, that's quite a coincidence. Life is full of them, Vanessa replied with a small smile. Anyway, they've promised Patricia will be dealt with. Mr. Reynolds is holding a staff meeting tonight to address what happened. Andre went back to organizing his presentation materials. Well, I hope something actually changes. Not just for us, but for everyone who stays here. That's the plan, Vanessa said, watching her son with pride. Despite the day's difficulties, he remained focused on his goals, on the conference that could help launch his company to the next level. After a moment of comfortable silence, Andre looked up with a mischievous grin. So, Mom, want to bet on whether Patricia will still be working here tomorrow morning? Vanessa laughed. No bet. Some outcomes are just too predictable. What neither of them knew was just how quickly things were about to change. Not just for Patricia Miller, but for the entire hotel chain. The staff meeting that evening was unlike any other the Westlake Hotel had ever held. Every employee who wasn't directly assisting guests was crammed into the largest conference room, the atmosphere tense with anticipation. Rumors had spread quickly throughout the afternoon. Something had happened at the front desk. Patricia had been escorted from the property, and Mr. Reynolds was furious. Patricia herself sat in the back corner, her face pale and tight with anger. She had been told to attend the meeting before clearing out her desk. Her usual pearl earrings were missing, as if she'd removed them in haste. At precisely 7:30, Mr. Reynolds entered the room, followed by two people, a stern-looking woman from Human Resources whom everyone recognized, and a distinguished older gentleman in an expensive suit whom no one knew. Good evening, everyone, Reynolds began, his voice unusually serious. I've called this emergency meeting because something happened today that goes against everything the Westlake is supposed to stand for. I won't mince words. We had a clear incident of racial discrimination at our front desk, and it was captured on video. A murmur ran through the room. Several employees glanced toward Patricia, who stared straight ahead, her jaw clenched. Before I explain further, Reynolds continued, I want to introduce William Montgomery, the CEO of Grand Hospitality Group, our parent company. Mr. Montgomery happened to be in town for business and has joined us specifically for this meeting. The older gentleman stepped forward. His expression was grave as he surveyed the room. Thank you, Thomas. I'll be brief, Montgomery said, his deep voice commanding immediate attention. What happened today was not just a lapse in customer service, it was discrimination, plain and simple. And it is completely unacceptable. He paused, making eye contact with several staff members before continuing. I've been in the hospitality business for over 40 years. In that time, I've learned that excellence isn't just about luxury amenities or beautiful lobbies. It's about treating every single guest with dignity and respect. His gaze traveled to Patricia. Unfortunately, that didn't happen today. Reynolds stepped forward again, holding up a tablet. With permission from our security team, I'm going to play a brief clip from our lobby cameras. This happened this afternoon during check-in. He tapped the screen, and the large presentation monitor on the wall displayed the hotel lobby. Everyone watched as Andre approached the desk, and Patricia's entire demeanor changed. The audio was crystal clear as she questioned his reservation, suggested he was at the wrong hotel, implied he couldn't afford the rates, and then immediately brightened when helping another guest. The room was completely silent when the video ended. Some staff members looked shocked, others uncomfortable, and a few nodded grimly as if they'd seen this behavior before. This is not an isolated incident, Reynolds continued. We've received previous complaints that, in retrospect, show a pattern of similar behavior. Today, however, we have undeniable evidence. Patricia finally spoke up from the back of the room, her voice tight with indignation. That recording is taken completely out of context. I was following protocol for unconfirmed reservations and his card really was declined the first time. Reynolds turned to her, his expression hard. Patricia, the security footage shows you processed Mr. Whitman's reservation without any confirmation in our system, while claiming Mr. Taylor's confirmed reservation couldn't be found. It shows you offering Mr. Whitman a suite while telling Mr. Taylor no appropriate rooms were available, and the card issue has already been investigated by our payment processor. There was no decline. You manually entered a decline code. Gasps could be heard around the room. Manually entering a decline was a serious violation of company policy. Patricia's face reddened. You can't prove that was my intent. This is ridiculous. I've worked here for 8 years. Montgomery stepped forward again. Ms. Miller, your employment with Grand Hospitality Group is terminated effective immediately. Our HR representative will escort you to collect your personal belongings, and then you will leave the property. You will receive your final paycheck as required by law, but there will be no severance package or references. Patricia stood up, shaking with anger. You can't do this. I'll sue for wrongful termination. You're welcome to try, Montgomery replied, calmly. We have ample evidence, including multiple guest complaints and now video footage. But more importantly, Ms. Miller, you violated the core values of our company and caused harm to a guest through discriminatory actions. There's nothing wrongful about this termination. The HR representative moved toward Patricia, gesturing toward the door. After a moment of tense silence, Patricia stormed out, the HR representative following close behind. Once they had left, Montgomery addressed the remaining staff again. I want to be very clear. This is not just about one employee or one incident. This is about our culture and our values as a company. He walked slowly around the front of the room, making eye contact with different staff members. Starting tomorrow, Grand Hospitality Group is launching a comprehensive review of our diversity and inclusion practices across all properties. We've already begun the process of bringing in new leadership specifically focused on these issues. Reynolds nodded. Every staff member, from management to housekeeping, will participate in new training programs. We're also implementing improved systems for guests to report concerns, and those reports will be taken seriously and investigated thoroughly, Montgomery added. We're also creating a diversity committee with representatives from every department and level of employment. Your perspectives and experiences matter, and we need your help to make real, lasting change. As the meeting continued, across the hotel, Andre was sitting down to dinner with his mother in the West Lake's upscale restaurant. The service was impeccable, almost suspiciously so. Is it just me? Andre said quietly. Or is everyone being extra nice to us now? Vanessa smiled slightly as she cut into her steak. Word travels fast in hotels. By now everyone probably knows what happened at check-in. Andre shook his head. It's strange. This morning I couldn't get basic courtesy. And now we're getting the royal treatment. That's how it often works, Vanessa replied. Once people know you have some power or influence, they treat you differently. The real test is how they treat people when they don't know who they are. As if on cue, Vanessa's phone buzzed with an email notification. She glanced at it and raised her eyebrows. Speaking of power and influence, she said, showing Andre the screen. That was fast. The email was from William Montgomery, CEO of Grand Hospitality Group, requesting a breakfast meeting the following morning to discuss mutual interests and opportunities. Wow, Andre said, impressed. They're not wasting any time. No, they're not, Vanessa agreed. They're in damage control mode, worried about potential lawsuits or bad publicity. But if they're genuinely interested in change, this could be an opportunity to make a real difference. Andre studied his mother's face. Are you considering it? Taking a position with them? Vanessa took a thoughtful sip of her wine. I'm considering hearing what they have to say. There's a difference. But you've built your whole career around your law practice, Andre pointed out. Would you really leave that behind? I wouldn't necessarily have to, Vanessa replied. Many board positions or consulting roles are part-time commitments. But more importantly, sometimes the universe puts opportunities in your path at exactly The right moment. She set down her glass and leaned forward. For years I've been fighting these battles one lawsuit at a time. It's important work, but it's reactive, addressing harm after it's already been done. This could be a chance to be proactive, to prevent these situations before they happen. Andre nodded slowly. I get that. But can one person really change an entire company culture? Not alone, Vanessa admitted. But, with the right authority and resources, you can set the tone from the top. And clearly, what happened today has the attention of the people in charge. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Mr. Reynolds at their table. He looked tired but determined. Dr. Taylor, Mr. Taylor, he greeted them formally. I apologize for interrupting your dinner, but I wanted to update you personally. Patricia Miller has been terminated, effective immediately. She's no longer on the property. Andre and Vanessa exchanged a look. Thank you for letting us know, Vanessa said evenly. Reynolds hesitated, then added, I also want you to know that Mr. Montgomery, our CEO, is personally overseeing our response to this incident. He's in town and would like to meet with you tomorrow, if you're available. Yes, I just received his email, Vanessa replied. Please tell him I'll be available for breakfast at 8. Reynolds nodded, clearly relieved. Excellent. He'll be pleased to hear that. He glanced at Andre. And Mr. Taylor, is there anything we can do to ensure your conference experience goes smoothly from here on out? Andre thought for a moment. Actually, yes. I noticed on the conference schedule that there's a networking reception tomorrow evening. I was wondering if the hotel might be able to display some information about my startup alongside the other sponsors. Reynolds brightened. Of course. We'd be happy to include your materials. Just bring whatever you have to the front desk in the morning, and we'll make sure it's prominently featured. After Reynolds left, Vanessa gave her son an approving look. Well played, making the most of the situation. Andre shrugged, a small smile playing at his lips. I learned from the best. Besides, every entrepreneur knows you have to seize opportunities when they present themselves. As they finished their meal, both were aware that what had started as a humiliating experience had transformed into something unexpected, a potential turning point, not just for them personally, but perhaps for countless future guests who would never know how different their experience might have been. Back in his office, Mr. Reynolds was preparing notes for the CEO's meeting with Dr. Taylor. On his desk lay Patricia's personnel file, open to a page filled with previous complaints that had been downgraded or dismissed. Next to it sat a draft press release about Grand Hospitality Group's new diversity and inclusion initiative, with a blank space where the name of its leader would soon appear. The wheels of change had been set in motion, faster than anyone could have anticipated. 6 months later, Andre stood in front of the mirror in his new office, adjusting his tie. The logo of his company, TechBridge, was displayed prominently on the wall behind him, the same logo that was now featured on the websites of 3 major tech companies who had signed partnership deals after the conference. His phone buzzed with a text message from his mother. Ready for the big day? Andre smiled and typed back, as ready as I'll ever be. See you there at 2? The response came quickly. Wouldn't miss it for the world. He tucked his phone away and took one last look around the office. 6 months ago, TechBridge had been a promising idea operating out of his apartment. Now he had a small team, real funding, and clients who believed in his vision of using technology to bridge opportunity gaps in underserved communities. The irony wasn't lost on him that the same hotel incident that could have derailed his conference experience had instead become a catalyst for his company's growth. After the confrontation at the Westlake, word had spread quickly among conference attendees. People came to his presentation out of curiosity, but they stayed because his ideas were genuinely innovative. By the end of the conference, he had more investor interest than he could have hoped for. But today wasn't about TechBridge. Today was about something potentially much bigger. 2 hours later, Andre walked into the grand ballroom of the Westlake Hotel, now transformed with elegant decorations and a stage at the front. The room was filling with people, hotel staff from various properties, business leaders, community representatives, and media. Andre spotted his mother near the front, engaged in conversation with William Montgomery and several board members of Grand Hospitality Group. She looked completely in her element in a sharp business suit, her natural hair styled elegantly, exuding the quiet confidence that had always inspired him. When she saw him, she excused herself and came over to greet him with a warm hug. "Nervous?" Andre asked with a grin. Vanessa laughed lightly. "After 30 years of giving closing arguments in courtrooms, this is nothing." But they both knew this wasn't just another speech. Today marked the official launch of Grand Hospitality Group's Inclusion Initiative, with Dr. Vanessa Taylor as its newly appointed Executive Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. After careful consideration and negotiation, Vanessa had accepted the position 3 months ago, structuring it so she could maintain her law practice while implementing sweeping changes across the hotel chain. The board had given her real authority and resources, not just to provide training but to reshape policies, hiring practices, and the very culture of the organization. "Look who's here," Vanessa said quietly, nodding toward the entrance. Andre turned to see David and Laura Chen, the couple who had been waiting in line behind him that fateful day at check-in. They had stayed in touch after the conference, with David offering valuable advice for Andre's business plan. "I invited them," Vanessa explained. "I thought it was important to have witnesses to both the problem and the solution." As they made their way to their seats, Andre noticed how different the hotel staff looked now. There was greater diversity among the employees, and everyone wore a small pin with the new initiative's logo, a bridge spanning a gap, similar to his own company's symbol. Mr. Reynolds approached them, looking more relaxed than he had 6 months ago. "Dr. Taylor, everything is ready for the presentation. And Mr. Taylor, it's good to see you again. I hear TechBridge is doing remarkable things." "We're making progress," Andre replied modestly. "And I hear you've been making some changes here as well." Reynolds nodded. "Thanks to your mother's leadership, we've completely overhauled our hiring and training practices. Guest satisfaction scores are up 20%, and employee retention has improved significantly." Vanessa smiled. "The real test will be sustaining these changes long-term and expanding them across all properties. That's what today is about." The lights dimmed slightly, signaling the start of the event. As Vanessa made her way to the stage, Andre took his seat in the front row, feeling a surge of pride. William Montgomery stepped up to the podium first. "Good afternoon, everyone. 6 months ago, an incident occurred in this very hotel that revealed serious flaws in our company culture. Today, we're not here to sweep that under the rug or pretend it never happened. We're here because of it, because sometimes it takes a painful moment of truth to spark real change." He paused, looking out at the audience. "I could stand here and tell you about all the initiatives we've implemented since then, the revised hiring practices, the comprehensive training programs, the new reporting systems. But instead, I'm going to introduce the person who has been the driving force behind these changes, whose vision and leadership are transforming not just how we operate, but who we are as a company. Please welcome Dr. Vanessa Taylor, our Executive Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion." The applause was enthusiastic as Vanessa took the stage. She thanked Montgomery and then stood quietly for a moment, surveying the room. "6 months ago, my son came to this hotel for a business conference," she began, her voice clear and confident. "What happened next is probably why many of you are here today. He was discriminated against because of the color of his skin." She didn't shy away from the truth, describing exactly what had occurred that day. "As his mother, I was angry. As an attorney who has fought discrimination cases for decades, I was sadly not surprised. But as someone who believes in the possibility of change, I saw an opportunity." She moved away from the podium, walking across the stage as she spoke. The easy path would have been to file a lawsuit, get a settlement, and move on. Many companies would have paid whatever it took to keep the incident quiet. But when Mr. Montgomery approached me about leading this initiative, he didn't ask me to help with damage control. He asked me to help transform the company. Vanessa clicked a remote, and the screen behind her displayed statistics and images from the work that had been done over the past 3 months. "We've implemented new hiring practices that have increased staff diversity by 30%. We've created anonymous reporting systems that allow both guests and employees to flag concerns without fear of retaliation. We've revised promotion criteria to eliminate unconscious bias. And perhaps most importantly, we've established clear consequences for discriminatory behavior, no matter who the employee is or how long they've worked here. She clicked to the next slide, which showed testimonials from guests and employees about the changes they'd noticed. But this isn't just about policies and procedures. It's about people. It's about creating an environment where everyone, every guest, every employee, every vendor, is treated with dignity and respect. Andre watched his mother with admiration. She had always fought for justice, but usually one case at a time. Now she was working to change an entire system from within. I know some of you might be skeptical, Vanessa continued. You might wonder if this is just a public relations exercise that will fade away once the spotlight moves on. That's a fair concern. She paused, looking directly at the audience. That's why we're not just announcing changes today. We're committing to transparency and accountability. Starting next month, we'll be publishing quarterly reports on our progress, measured against clear benchmarks. We've established an independent advisory council of community leaders and industry experts who will evaluate our efforts and hold us accountable. As she concluded her presentation, Vanessa invited several hotel employees to join her on stage. People from different backgrounds, departments, and levels of the organization who were serving as inclusion ambassadors at their respective properties. Real change doesn't happen from the top down alone, she explained. It happens when everyone is invested in creating a culture where discrimination has no place. After the formal presentation, the event transitioned to a reception where attendees could learn more about specific initiatives. Andre found himself surrounded by people interested in TechBridge's work, especially when they learned how it connected to the larger themes of access and opportunity. Later, as the crowd thinned, Andre and Vanessa found a quiet moment together. No, when I walked into this hotel 6 months ago, I never imagined we'd be back here like this, Andre remarked. Vanessa smiled. Life has a way of taking unexpected turns. Do you think it will last? Andre asked. The changes, I mean. Some will, some won't, Vanessa replied honestly. Change is never a straight line, but we've put systems in place that make it harder to go backward. And more importantly, we've changed the conversation, not just about who's welcome in these spaces, but about who has the power to shape them. Andre nodded thoughtfully. It still bothers me sometimes, knowing that if you hadn't been there that day, if you weren't who you are, things might have gone very differently. That's why the work matters, Vanessa said, because dignity shouldn't depend on having connections or knowing the right people. It should be the baseline, the minimum that everyone can expect. As they walked through the lobby, Andre noticed a new plaque on the wall, featuring the initiative's mission statement. The last line read, "We recognize that excellence in hospitality begins with respect for the inherent dignity of every person who walks through our doors." Outside, a young black couple was being greeted warmly by the doorman and directed to the front desk, where a diverse team of staff stood ready to welcome them. Small changes, perhaps, in the grand scheme of things. But as Andre and Vanessa stepped out into the afternoon sunlight, they knew that sometimes transformation begins with a single moment. A confrontation, a recognition, a decision to demand better. And sometimes, that's enough to start bridging the gap between the world as it is and the world as it should be.